Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany. Welcome to Randomness, where we talk about a little bit of everything, the deep, the weird, and the real. So take a breath, open your mind, and let's get into it. Picture this. You're dating someone amazing. Things are going well. Then they don't text back for a few hours, and suddenly you're convinced they're losing interest. Drafting paragraphs in your head, checking your phone every 30 seconds. And meanwhile, your friend is dating someone equally amazing. Things are going well. And when their partner doesn't text back, they just go about their day. Doesn't even occur to them to worry. What's the difference? You're both in good relationships. You both care about your partners, but your nervous systems are responding in completely different ways. Welcome to the world of attachment styles. Attachment theory started when a psychologist named John Bowlby, back in the 1950s, he was studying how infants bond with their caregivers, and he noticed something fascinating. Babies don't just need food and shelter. They need emotional responsiveness. They need to know that when they cry, someone will come. When they're scared, someone will comfort them. But not all caregivers respond the same way. Some are consistently warm and available. Sometimes responsive and sometimes not. Sometimes people are inconsistent. Some are emotionally distant or dismissive, and some are frightening or unpredictable. Babies are smart, they adapt. They develop strategies to get their needs met based on what works with their particular caregivers. Those strategies become patterns. Those patterns become your attachment style. And unless you do some serious work to change it, that attachment style follows you into adulthood and shapes every close relationship you have. Researchers eventually identified 4 main attachment styles. Think of them as different operating systems for relationships. They are running in the background, influencing how you interpret situations, what you expect from people, and how you behave when things get emotional. So let's start with secure attachment because it's what we are all aiming for. People with secure attachment are generally comfortable with intimacy and independence. They can be close to their partners without losing themselves. They can ask for what they need without feeling needy. And when conflicts happen, they address them directly instead of avoiding. They trust that people generally mean well, but they're also not naive. They notice red flags and respond appropriately. They have a positive view of themselves and others. Relationships feel relatively straightforward to them, not like constant anxiety inducing puzzles, If you had caregivers who were consistently available, responsive, and warm, who made you feel safe and valued, you probably developed secure attachment. You learned that people can be trusted, that your needs matter, and that relationships are a source of comfort rather than stress. About 50 to 60% of people have secure attachment, which means about 40 to 50% of us are out here struggling with the other styles. Okay, so there's anxious attachment. The relationship overthinker. Anxious attachment develops when caregivers were inconsistent. Sometimes they were warm and available. Other times they were distracted, dismissive, or emotionally unavailable. So as a kid, you never knew which version you would get. So you learned to monitor them constantly, trying to figure out how to get your needs met. And as an adult, this looks like relationship anxiety. You crave closeness and intimacy, but you're terrified of rejection. You might overthink everything, analyzing texts, reading into tone of voice, looking for signs that someone is pulling away. You need a lot of reassurance. And even when you get it, it doesn't quite stick. You might worry you love your partner more than they love you. You might interpret normal space or independence as rejection. And when there's conflict, you might try to fix things immediately. You need to talk it out right now because the disconnect feels unbearable. Here's the painful part. Anxious attachment can sometimes create the very thing that you fear. Your partner needs some space. So you immediately think that they're leaving you. You reach out more, they feel smothered and pull back further, which confirms your fear. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that's absolutely exhausting for everyone involved. Okay, then we have the avoidant attachment, the emotional distance champion. So, avoidant attachment typically develops when caregivers were consistently emotionally unavailable or dismissive. Maybe they discouraged emotional expression, valued independence over connection, or made you feel like your needs were a burden. You learned that depending on others doesn't work out well, so you became self-reliant, extremely self-reliant, like, I don't need anyone, you know, that type of level of self-reliant. And as an adult, you probably value your independence intensely. You might be uncomfortable with too much closeness or vulnerability. Or when relationships get too intimate, you feel trapped or suffocated. So you might pull away when your partner tries to get closer, or you might avoid deep emotional conversations altogether. And you're often attracted to people initially, but then you find reasons to maintain distance, focusing on their flaws, staying busy with work, keeping one foot out the door emotionally. You might say you want a relationship, but then consistently choose unavailable partners, or you just sabotage things when they get too serious. During conflicts, you tend to withdraw, shut down, or intellectualize rather than engaging emotionally. You pride yourself on being rational and in control, and other people's emotional needs might feel overwhelming or manipulative to you. Okay, then we have the fearful avoidant or disorganized, the push-pull paradox. This is the most complicated and painful attachment style, and it develops when caregivers were frightening or traumatic, maybe abusive, maybe deeply inconsistent in scary ways. The person who was supposed to be your source of safety was also your source of fear. Yes, so this creates an impossible bind. You desperately want closeness and connection, but intimacy also terrifies you. You crave relationships, but you don't trust them. You move toward people and then panic and you pull away. Hence, fearful avoidant. You have both the anxious craving for closeness and the avoidant fear of it. Relationships feel chaotic because you constantly are in conflict with yourself. You might idealize someone from a distance, pursue them intensely. Then, when they reciprocate and things get great, you suddenly see them as threatening and you push them away. Or you oscillate between clinging and distancing, often confusing both yourself and your partner. And this style is less common than anxious or avoidant, but it's the most challenging to navigate because your needs and fears are in direct opposition to each other. So let's talk about how attachment styles show up in real life. Imagine this scenario. Your partner says they need some alone time this weekend to recharge. Secure response would be, sure, I get that. Maybe you want to plan for something next week, You take them at their word, use the time for yourself, and you do not spiral. The anxious response, internal panic. What did I do wrong? Are they mad at me? Are they losing interest? Do they still love me? You might text them multiple times, suggest compromises, need extra reassurance that everything's okay between you. Now, the avoidant response is relief, actually. Space sounds great. You might even extend it longer than they suggested. The idea of having to be emotionally available was feeling like pressure anyway. Fearful avoidant response would be like, you know, relief and panic at the same time. And part of you feels freed from the pressure of intimacy, and part of you is terrified they're abandoning you. You might agree to the space, but then you obsess over it, or you pick a fight before they leave. So at least you know where things stand. Same situation, 4 completely different internal experiences. Okay, so here's where things get interesting and really messy. 2 securely attached people, generally smooth sailing, right? They communicate well, handle conflicts reasonably, give each other space and closeness as needed, not perfect, but functional. Anxious and avoidant together. Oh boy, this is one of the most common pairings, and it's kind of a disaster because the anxious person pursues, the avoidant person distances, which makes the anxious person pursue more intensely, which makes the avoidant person distance more. It's called the anxious avoidant trap, and it can go on for years. The cruel irony, anxious people are often attracted to avoidant people because the distance creates the uncertainty that feels familiar. And avoidant people are often attracted to anxious people initially because their enthusiasm feels nice until it starts feeling suffocating. 2 anxious people together can work if they're both doing their healing work, but it can also, it can become codependent or volatile, with both people's fears amplifying each other. 2 avoidant people might seem compatible. They both want space, but the relationship can lack intimacy or emotional depth. They might just drift along parallel to each other without ever really connecting. Fearful avoidant with anyone tends to be complicated because the internal conflict creates unpredictable behavior that's hard for partners to navigate. Attachment styles affect all your close relationships, friendships, family dynamics, even work relationships to some extent. Anxious attachment might show up as being the friend who always initiates plans and then feels hurt when others don't reciprocate at the same level, or needing constant communication to feel secure in their friendships. Avoidant attachment might look like being a great casual friend, but disappearing when things get too emotionally deep, or having many surface level friendships, but no one who really knows you. Secure attachment shows up as being able to maintain close friendships, even through distance or life changes, feeling comfortable with different levels of closeness with different people, and just being able to navigate conflicts without the friendship imploding. So the really important question is, can you change? And yes, absolutely yes. Your attachment style is not a life sentence. It's shaped by early experiences, but with awareness, effort, and therapy, people can move toward more secure attachment. So here's what helps. Self-awareness is definitely step 1. Understanding your attachment style helps you recognize when you are reacting from that place versus responding to actual relationship dynamics. You can start to notice, oh, I'm spiraling because I'm anxious, not because anything's actually wrong. Therapy, especially attachment-focused therapy, a good therapist can help you understand where your patterns come from and develop new ways of relating. And they can also provide the kind of consistent, attuned relationship that starts to rewire your expectations. Being in a secure relationship can be healing. If you're anxious or avoidant and you date someone who is securely attached, their consistency and emotional availability can gradually help you develop more security. And no, it won't happen overnight, and you have to be willing to do your part, but secure partners can be incredibly healing. And you need to work on yourself independently, building self-worth, learning emotional regulation skills, developing interests and friendships outside romantic relationships. These all help you become more securely attached. recognizing and challenging your patterns. When you notice yourself doing the anxious or avoidant thing, pause, ask yourself what you actually need versus what your attachment wounds are telling you to do, and try to choose a different response. The goal is not perfection. Even securely attached people have moments of insecurity or distance. The goal is flexibility, being able to be close when closeness serves the relationship, and being able to have space when space is needed without either one triggering a 5-alarm fire in your nervous system. So if you're listening to this and realizing you're anxious or avoidant or fearful avoidant, please be gentle with yourself. You didn't choose your attachment style. You developed it as a kid, trying to survive and get your needs met in whatever environment you were in. It was adaptive then. It made sense. The fact that it's causing problems now doesn't mean you're broken or damaged or unlovable. It just means you're carrying strategies that worked once, but they don't serve you anymore. And that's okay. That's changeable. That's what growth is. Also, knowing your attachment style isn't an excuse for poor behavior. You can't be like, sorry, I ghosted you for 3 weeks. I'm avoidant. No, that doesn't cut it. But it can be an explanation and a starting point for change. Attachment styles are frameworks for understanding patterns, not rigid categories that define who you are. You might lean anxious in romantic relationships, but secure in friendships. You might be generally avoidant, but become anxious with certain people. You might be in the process of becoming more secure, even though your default settings are still anxious. The point isn't to label yourself and call it a day. The point is to understand yourself better so you can show up differently in relationships, to recognize when your past is hijacking your present, to make conscious choices instead of running on autopilot. Understanding attachment theory means understanding that the ways you struggle in relationships aren't character flaws. They are learned patterns, and anything learned can be unlearned or at least modified. You can become the kind of person who feels safe in intimacy, who trusts without being naive, who can handle closeness and distance without falling apart. Secure attachment is possible, even if you did not start there. All right, guys. Well, if this episode hit home for you, consider it an invitation to explore your own patterns with curiosity rather than judgment. And maybe, if you're up for it, start doing the work to shift towards security. Future will thank you. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow, and remember, keep your energy grounded, your mind open, and your curiosity alive.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.